Story 1. I never thought a simple trip to the shopping center would turn into such a frustrating experience. But I guess that's just how life goes sometimes, right? Let me tell you what happened. It all started because I needed to stock up on groceries. My fridge was running low, and I had a busy week ahead at work. I'm a nurse at the local hospital, and my shifts can be pretty unpredictable. So, when I got a rare day off, I decided to make the most of it and do a big shop. I drove to this small shopping center not far from my place. It's got an underground car park, which is great when it's raining, and wouldn't you know it, it was pouring that day. I found a spot easily enough, nose in, right next to a big concrete pole on my left. The space to my right was empty when I parked. I spent about an hour inside, filling my trolley with all the essentials. By the time I was done, I was looking forward to getting home, putting my feet up, and maybe watching a bit of telly before meal prepping for the week. But as I walked back to my car, pushing my full trolley, I noticed something that made my heart sink. A fancy car had parked next to mine, reversed in, and there was this bloke standing between our cars, his driver's door wide open, yakking away on his phone like he owned the place. I tried to be polite, gave him a little nod as I started unloading my groceries into my boot. He didn't even look at me. I thought, no worries, he'll probably be gone by the time I return my trolley. But nope. When I came back, he was still there, still on his phone, still with his door open. I couldn't even get to my driver's side door. Excuse me, please. I said it nicely, thinking he'd take the hint. He gave me this look, like I just insulted his mother or something. But he did move a bit and close his door, just enough for me to squeeze in. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. As soon as I sat down in my car, he swung his door open again. Now, I was stuck. If I reversed, my wing mirror would have hit his door for sure. And that big pole on my left meant I couldn't turn that way either. I took a deep breath, lowered my window, and tried once more to be polite. Excuse me, can you close your door, so I can leave? This bloke looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. He held up one finger in a wait gesture and turned his back on me, still gabbing away on his phone. Now, I'm usually a patient person. You have to be in my line of work. But this was taking the mick. I'd had a long week of dealing with entitled patients who thought their paper cut was more important than someone else's heart attack. I was tired, I was hungry, and I just wanted to go home. So, I did something I've never done before. I closed my window, locked my doors, looked straight at him, and put my hand on the horn. The look on his face when he spun around. If looks could kill, I'd have dropped dead right there. But I didn't back down. I kept my hand on the horn and just raised my eyebrows at him. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to do something. But then, still glaring at me, he got in his car and slammed the door shut. I took my hand off the horn and gave him my sweetest smile. Thank you. I mouthed the words, making sure he could see, then started to reverse my car. As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, his face red with anger. Was it petty? Probably. Did it feel good? You bet it did. Sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself, even if it means being a bit cheeky. As I drove home, I couldn't help but chuckle. I imagined telling this story to my colleagues during our next night shift. They'd get a kick out of it for sure. It's not often that I do something like that, but hey, everyone has their limits. When I got home, I put away my groceries with a smile on my face. Sure, it wasn't the relaxing shopping trip I'd planned, but it sure made for a good story. And you know what? I reckon that bloke might think twice before being so inconsiderate in the future. Sometimes, a little lesson in manners is just what people need. So there you have it. My little adventure in the underground car park. Who knew grocery shopping could be so eventful? Next time, I might just order online and avoid the drama altogether. But then again, where's the fun in that? Story 2. Yeah, I'm back. And with another entitled parent encounter. I seemed cursed of this sort of thing, because almost the exact situation repeated itself. I was traveling for work again, and cutting things close to be home for Christmas. This time it happened on a layover on my way home. My next flight wasn't to be for a few hours, so I did my usual of finding an airport cafe and plugging in my personal laptop so I would not run the battery dry. This time I was playing Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. I really enjoy playing as Henry, even though his quest is so much shorter, because he actually uses a gun. I had to wear headphones to avoid disturbing anyone, but eventually I felt a small hand tugging at my pant leg. It was a small boy, probably a bit younger than the one from the last time I posted. He pointed out the bright red game controller I was using and asked what it was. He thought it was for an Xbox. Internally, I was mildly offended by that, being the retro Nintendo fan I am. But only a complete jerk would be angry at a kid for not knowing about something that existed before they were born. Plus, it's not like all people in my day were Nintendo fans. Yeah, I was one of those guys who got in console debates, and even though I never got a chance to really click with the Super Nintendo, I still defended it against the Sega Genesis, though not on a console wars level. I let my friends do those debates. Back to the situation in the airport, I was tired and not in the mood to be bothered. So I politely asked the kid to please go back to his parents and leave me be. He just stared at me like what I said didn't register. So I asked again. And when that didn't work, I asked a nearby employee for help and a coffee refill. The employee found the kid's mother nearby and ushered the boy back to her. Moments later, I was being confronted by an EM dressed in all black and white, while red in the face like a bad newspaper headline, and was demanding to know what my problem was. I can't just play video games in public and expect to not attract the attention of children. I sighed because I knew exactly where this was going. Not my first rodeo after all, but in most other situations like this, I usually just get a dirty glare from the EP. But after the incident in which an EM destroyed my laptop, I was much more on guard. I stood up and told her it was not my job to entertain her child. It's not the job of the cafe employees or other people in the cafe either. It was her job. Either bring something for her kid to game on, or find a way to entertain him herself. I don't care, but leave me out of it. She acted extremely offended and called me a giant man-baby. I told her that was exactly the sort of thing a Karen would say, which only angered her further. Soon the same employee was back and tried to break things up. She politely asked us both to calm down, but the EM refused and said I should be thrown out for insulting her. I finally had enough and said I sued the last person like her who demanded I entertain their son, because they broke my computer and got arrested. And there are cameras all around us to see who started what. So go ahead, try me. The EM started huffing, and I calmed down enough to sit back down and act polite enough to say please just leave me alone. The employee sided with me and asked her to just calm down and leave me be. The EM huffed and dragged her kid away by the hand while he cried about the games. For a good while she was repeatedly glaring at me. Her son played on what I assume was her phone, which meant she had nothing to do herself. But then they left and later came back with a coloring book and a fresh pack of crayons I think she grabbed at the overpriced gift shop, and her son played with that till it was time to go. This isn't quite over though. That EM was somehow on the same flight as me, which made the EM target me during boarding. She made sure to be as close to me as possible, and her little boy had nasty gas, so he kept farting right in my direction. But I stayed silent, and I kept my sunglasses on so she could not see where I was looking. She tried acting smug looking back at me, but the smugness was short-lived as I made sure to act completely indifferent and silent to not show any irritation. Someone else called her out on her kids farting too, and she had a short argument with them about it. She later seemed to look like she sucked on a lemon as she saw I got to board before her to go to business class, and she had to board for coach a few minutes later. She mouthed "F you" as she went by my aisle seat. I was off the flight before the EM, so I didn't see her again when leaving the airport. When my wife picked me up, I told her what happened. She rolled her eyes and called me a Karen magnet. Edit. Yeah, my wife told me no one would believe me if I posted this here. She's one of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. To answer why I was in the cafe and not the lounge, I go where there's a free power outlet. Plus, I wanted some good coffee. Why didn't I just explain about the games and N64 controller to the kid? Because every time I've done that with an EP's kid, they don't seem to lose interest. I've been asked by kids many times while emulator gaming on my laptop, and they rarely ever care that the games are over 20 years old. They're more concerned with the fact I have games when they're bored and have nothing else to do. And when my wife called me a Karen magnet, she wasn't joking. Most of the people who ask me about N64 gaming on my laptop just have a few questions and leave me alone. Then there's the ones who don't leave me alone. I've had numerous similar incidents in various places, but most of the time the EP takes their kid and back off. And the incident in which a Karen EM broke my laptop left me with an even shorter fuse for those people. Call me a giant man baby if you want, but I just wanted to relax and play my games in peace while waiting for my flight. Is that so wrong? Story 3. So this past Christmas, my missus and I purchased one of our 9-year-old son's Santa gifts from a certain UK sports retail company that also has many stores here in Ireland as well. It was a football rebounder, kind of like a trampoline that you kick the ball at and it bounces back to you. Anyway, we purchased it from their Irish website and thought nothing more of it. A few days go by and we get a notification from a certain brown uniformed courier company that there are customs charges due on something. And as you can imagine, we've bought many things for the kids, so we had to double check what we've ordered. And we didn't have anything left that was being imported, so we naturally assumed it was a scam. So I told the wife to call the company and find out who shipped it, and it was a different courier company based in the UK. After a bit of digging and investigating, it turns out that it's our rebounder. They had shipped it from the UK via a local carrier to the brown uniformed guys to deliver to us. Now, my wife and I are both on disability, so an additional charge of almost €50 when you're both already on a fixed income is harsh, especially at Christmas, so I told her to pay it and I'd deal with the retailer. The first day I called, I had to call 3 times, being stuck on hold for at least 20 minutes each time, but I was patient and polite because I've worked in a call center before, so I knew those people are only doing their job. But I asked to speak to a manager and was promised a call back each time. That never happened. The second day was quite similar. The third day I was starting to get annoyed, so called back, waiting even longer on hold, and finally wasn't taking this crap any longer. I told the rep that all I wanted was the €50 back because our consumer rights in Ireland dictate that a person must be informed of any additional charges on a purchase, at the very latest, by the final checkout screen. And in this case, there was nothing to show that, and I could easily replicate that issue by putting the same item in my basket and going all the way to the checkout screen again, and there was nothing saying we'd have to pay import charges. The rep was indifferent to the situation but tried to help, and what he said sent me over the edge. He offered me a measly €20 gift voucher to use on their website, but more importantly, he read a statement to me. He said, "We advise our customers that there may be DDU charges, delivery duty unpaid. In example, customs charges on any item that gets shipped outside of the UK." Then I asked him where it states this information, and he paused, then said he didn't actually know. I said, "Well, I know one thing. It doesn't say it anywhere on this transaction because I've checked, and because this is a violation of my consumer rights, I'm going to give your company one last chance to make this right. Have your manager call me within the next 60 minutes, or I'm going to post this entire debacle on LinkedIn and link every senior officer in your company." Then I hung up the phone and waited. Yet again, no call. The next day I went on LinkedIn and followed through on my promise. I created a post detailing what they had done by sticking us with hidden charges and that they were ignoring our requests for a manager and everything they said and did. Then I tagged every senior officer at that company, from the regional managers through the European directors all the way to the CEO, and I shamed them for how they operate their company. This, ladies and gentlemen, was now an act of war. Shortly after I posted that, I noticed that they took down the item from their website in an attempt to hide this, but they must have thought in a simple tone that doesn't understand how the internet works. They didn't realize that when you searched for rebounder on their site, that it shows the item in question, so I took a screenshot of that, then another of the item page that was now missing. But then I did a Google cached search for the same page and found a version from 2 days prior happily showing the item. Then I added a comment to my original post highlighting how they were trying to hide it, with the evidence, and trolling them for their heinous behavior, especially at Christmas. Then I tagged and shamed all the senior officers again, and at this point it was really starting to get some attention. Not only publicly, but 3 people in incognito mode viewed my profile. I wonder who they could have been. So naturally, I took a screenshot of the 3 mysterious visitors listed on my profile and did the same thing. Commented on my own post highlighting it and trolling them for their incompetence. The next morning, I got a call from a senior exec at their head office in the UK, practically licking my boots with apologies, asking what she can do to make this right. I told her I originally only wanted my €50 back, as it wasn't fair, nor even legal, that I had to pay it. But since I had to go to such lengths to get their attention, now I wanted my €50 back, a full refund on my entire purchase, and I wanted to keep the product. That was the only thing that would make this go away. She asked for a couple of hours to fix it, and I said okay. About an hour later, I got another call from her again apologizing. She asked for my PayPal address where she sent the €50. Then she refunded the whole purchase, and she let us keep the product. Obviously, I thanked her for her help, because at that stage I was just happy it was over. But I'll be screwed if I let anyone walk all over my family, even if they are a £58 million annual company. The most of the story here is, don't take bull from anyone. I may be just one man, but my son's view of Santa is far more valuable to me than the opinion of some retail chain that doesn't care about its customers nor how it operates ethically. Story 4. Man, you won't believe the craziness that went down during winter break. So, my kid, let's call him Jake, he's this math whiz. The dude's got numbers running through his veins. We decided to let him join this winter camp, right? Figured it'd be cool for him to keep his brain active. Plus, he loves that stuff. Now, Jake's on the spectrum, but that doesn't make him any less of a genius. So, he's at this camp, acing every math challenge they throw at him. Kid's basically a human calculator, but here's where the drama kicks in. One day, I get a call from the camp director. Apparently, there's been an incident involving Jake and another kid's mom, who's now infamous as Karen in our family. I rush over, thinking it's some normal kid tiff. Turns out, Karen's got twins at the camp, and she's all bent out of shape because Jake outsmarted both of them. Now, instead of being a normal, reasonable adult, she decides to go ballistic. I walk into the camp, and I can hear her yelling from a mile away. "Your freak kid is making mine look bad. He's a math weirdo," she screeches. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Like, really? Your kids lose in a math competition, and suddenly my boy's a freak? Anyway, I find Jake, and he's chilling by himself, working on some advanced calculus or whatever. He's used to this kind of thing, but I can see he's upset. Before I can even say anything, Karen marches over, eyes blazing. "What's wrong with your kid? He's making mine feel stupid," she accuses, pointing a finger at Jake like he's committed some crime. I'm like, "Lady, it's a math camp. They're here to learn and compete. If your kids aren't winning, that's not my boy's fault." Well, she ain't having any of it. Out of nowhere, she slaps Jake on the back of the head. I'm seeing red at this point, trying to keep my cool for Jake's sake. "He's a freak, a math freak. Probably cheats or something," she rants. I'm not one for confrontation, but when it comes to my kid, all bets are off. I tell Karen to back off, that she can't just hit someone's kid because hers didn't get a gold star in math. The camp director steps in, thank God. But Karen's not done. She starts spouting off about how Jake must have cheated, how he's ruining the camp for everyone, blah blah blah. I'm fuming. The director's looking at me like, Please, control your crazy. I decide to take the high road, tell the director to check the security cameras, if she's so convinced my kid's pulling a good while hunting on everyone. Long story short, they review the footage, and surprise, surprise, Jake didn't cheat. In fact, he offered to tutor Karen's kids because he felt bad they were struggling. The camp director is furious, rightfully so. They kick Karen and her twins out faster than you can say mathlete. But that's not the end of it. I'm not one for drama, but I had to share this tale with the good folks of Reddit. It's like a cautionary story. Don't mess with a math genius or his dad will get you banned from winter camp for life. So, there you have it, the saga of the entitled Karen who tried to throw hands with a math prodigy. My advice? Don't mess with the numbers game. Story 5. Hi, I'm a 24-year-old woman living on my own, away from my parents. I'm currently in a bit of a complicated situation with my friend, we'll call him David, 24 years old. We had a fling a few months ago, and now it's kind of happening again. It all started with us just hanging out and enjoying each other's company, but it gradually turned into something more. Here's where things get complicated. My parents knew about the first fling. David and my dad used to be inseparable, almost like father and son. However, once David and I had our fling, things changed. Now, my dad is trying to control him, telling him he's not allowed to have any contact with me outside of a group chat we're all in. We both think this is ridiculous. A few weeks ago, David and I were hanging out, and we went to a store to grab some snacks and just chill. While we were there, my parents showed up, which was strange because they don't even live in the same city as me. I live about 20 minutes away from them, and they just happened to appear at the store near my house, claiming they were there to buy batteries. That's when my dad confronted David, saying he told him not to be around me. My dad also told me that he wouldn't care anymore and not to come crying to him when I got heartbroken. Later, my mom texted me, saying it was the Holy Spirit that revealed something was happening so they could intervene. Honestly, I'm kind of glad that confrontation happened because afterward, David and I had a conversation about what's going on between us. We both enjoy each other's company and have feelings for one another, but we're taking things slow. While we were talking, my dad sent me long text messages, practically essays, explaining why I'm foolish for not following his rules and telling me he's no longer invested. He accused David of only wanting me for one thing and not caring as much as he does. He also said that if David were really in love with me, he would ask my dad for permission to date me and follow his rules. David assured me that he truly cares about me and that what my dad said isn't true. So, we decided to continue hanging out, especially since my dad claimed he no longer cared. We both have annual passes to Disneyland, so we decided to go there after work one day. While we were at Disneyland, my parents texted me, asking if I was there. I ignored their messages. We stayed until closing time, and as we were leaving, my dad approached us with a Starbucks bag, asking to talk. David kept walking, saying no, and of course, me, trying to keep the peace, begged him to talk to my dad. David refused, saying he'd rather take an Uber, but I insisted on giving him a ride, so we left my parents there. I cried in the car, and David reassured me that it wasn't my fault. While we were driving, I texted my mom, asking how she knew we were at Disneyland. She responded, "God is watching." When I asked again how she knew, she said she'd meet me at my house to explain, but I told her no, that it was strange and I wanted to know how they found out. She stopped replying, and then my dad sent me this message. "Your name. If you want to know how we knew you were there, you can talk to us in person. We came in peace and tried to be loving, even though I knew David was doing things he said he wouldn't. I just want him to care for you as much as I do, but you're going to find out the hard way, and that's really sad. He had every opportunity to confess his love for you and ask for space, and we could have had a good conversation. But instead, he ran away. From now on, you are not welcome in my home. We can meet in public to discuss how we knew you were at Disneyland, as that was going to be part of the conversation. I've never lied to you, and I never will. There is nothing I'm hiding." This could have been a great conversation, and we're still open to having it. But David, unfortunately, isn't. I've never treated him in any way other than how I would treat a good son. I hope and pray he doesn't do what I think he will. Wolves come into the sheepfold, separate them, and then devour them. But the good shepherd protects the sheep. If David was ever a sheep, he'll listen to the voice of God and those who loved and cherished him. I love you and only want the best for you. If you want to talk, we're willing to discuss anything you want to know. I replied to my dad with, "Dad, I don't expect him to be in love with me. It's way too soon. If you're not hiding anything, just explain how you knew I was there. I'm not meeting in person for a conversation we can have over text." He then responded, "Then don't meet with me. You need to see my demeanor and everything, and shame on you both for trying to blame us. You're the ones not doing the right thing and hiding. All the reasons you like David are gone, erased by his own actions. Do whatever you want from now on. I'm done with this pain. Don't come by the house. We can't support your drama anymore. You'll have to learn the hard way. The only difference now is that your mother and I are numb and don't feel anything. God will show the truth, but I wanted to protect you from getting hurt. I honestly don't care if I meet with them or not. I'm tired of the helicopter parenting. Every time I've brought a guy around, my dad inserts himself in the middle and drives him away. The few who were okay with it never worked out because I feared that if my dad could control them now, he'd control my future. If I don't do things their way, I'm wrong. I really like David, and he likes me. I'm 24 years old, and for once, I've found a guy who hasn't run away because of my overly involved parents. What concerns me is how my parents tracked me to Disneyland, and why. I just don't know what to do. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading this, and any suggestions would be helpful because I feel so alone right now. Edit. Thank you to everyone who gave advice. I've decided to let things settle for a few days. I'm going to hear my parents out just to understand how they knew my location. As controlling as they are, I love them, and I know they've always been honest with me. My dad said he would explain everything in person, so I'm giving myself a few days to calm down before meeting. I'll update once that happens. Edit 2. I texted my dad, saying I'd be willing to talk in the next few days. He responded by telling me to find a new phone provider. It's the last bill I have connected with them. They pay for my phone, and I reimburse them every month for my line. This just feels like another attempt to control me by threatening to cut off a service, but it's something I can easily take care of on my own. I also checked for tracking devices like Air Tags and didn't find anything. Story 6. Hello all. So, my parents are not the greatest. My mom is 60 and my dad is 58. I live with my spouse, who is 24. My parents think that my partner is going to break my heart. Despite me asking, they won't tell me why. My mother claims it's just mother's intuition, and my dad thinks my partner makes me into his housemaid and babysitter. Just to clarify, I'm a stay-at-home wife because I have college classes, but we split chores and responsibilities around the apartment. My dad claims that my partner underappreciates me, that he doesn't do enough, and that I do everything. He says this based on what he sees when we visit their house, adding that my partner forgets to pick up after himself. To be clear, my partner does clean up after himself and helps with chores around the apartment. He takes care of tasks like deep cleaning the stove, wiping down the counters, sweeping, mopping, and even vacuuming. I usually load the dishwasher, and he unloads it. I start the laundry, and he puts it away. The man I married literally went out and bought me a $600 treadmill to help me stay active, although I haven't used it for the past 2 weeks because schoolwork has been intense. Our professor hasn't been able to provide assignments due to a hurricane. He also got me roller skates this year and a pair of headphones for my birthday last year. He knows I don't like being spoiled, but he's thoughtful in a way that means a lot. A little backstory about my parents. My dad had an abusive, alcoholic father who did horrible things in front of him, his sisters, and his brother. He moved between Texas during his senior year of high school and later joined the military. My mom's dad passed away during her senior year of high school, and her mother lashed out at her. She started drinking but eventually stopped. When I was a kid, my dad had a temper. He would throw things and yell. I remember being spanked so hard I cried, and he would pull down my pants to hit me until it stung. He denies that now, but I remember. They would also take my things and threaten to break them if I misbehaved. They got angry if I talked to other kids at school, so I didn't have many friends. When I was allowed a phone for the one sport I could participate in, tennis, I wasn't even allowed to text other kids to schedule outside matches to qualify for the varsity team. I met my partner in 2020, not realizing at first that he would become my husband. We started as friends, and last year he asked me to be his girlfriend. Neither of us is the type for grand proposals. My dad got angry that my partner didn't ask for his blessing. We didn't do a fancy engagement or proposal, and I didn't want any of that. My partner and I had discussed getting married in 2026 when we'd have more time. However, when I found out my health insurance was expiring in 2024, my partner suggested we get married earlier. I told him I didn't want to feel like I was marrying him just for insurance, which made me uncomfortable. He understood, and we talked it through until I felt better about it. We planned a small wedding and said our vows. Fast forward to my most recent visit to my parents' house, and they still think he's going to break my heart. I said out loud, with my spouse in the room, that if he wanted to break my heart, he would have done it a long time ago. Basically, my parents don't get along, and I've always played the role of therapist, parentified child, and messenger. Their marriage is full of issues. My mom has a male boss, and my dad can't work due to disabilities, which makes him jealous. He suspects my mom of having an affair. Meanwhile, my mom wishes my dad would give her some space. Despite all of this, they still try to tell me and my partner how to live our lives. I feel like they're jealous. It seems like they wish their only daughter still lived at home, dependent on them, and constantly hearing about their problems. They don't even eat 3 proper meals a day, just breakfast, lunch, and a smoothie for dinner. When I told my previous counselor about this, she was shocked. My partner and I, on the other hand, eat 3 full meals a day. I'm not even pregnant yet, but my mom has already demanded that we use formula and disposable diapers if we ever have a child. My partner made a good point about not wanting to mess with the toilet in the apartment by adding a diaper sprayer for cloth diapers, which is reasonable. As for formula feeding, I told my mom that if the baby ever visits her, they'll be fed breast milk, and she said she wouldn't touch it. She insisted I buy formula. I told her that if she plans to feed formula to my future children, she'll have to pay for it. I do plan to get free samples for emergencies, in case my milk supply takes some time to come in. She also demanded to be in the delivery room. I told her no, and she asked when she'd be able to see the baby. I told her it wouldn't be until a week or more after the birth, whenever we feel the time is right. I'm done venting. Thanks for listening. Edit. A few misspellings and an additional sentence. This woman even told me not to have children with him. He's very affectionate, always giving hugs, forehead kisses, running his fingers through my hair, and his snuggles are the best. Edit V2. My husband is not entitled. He's very sweet. As for spoiling, I tell him to save that for Christmas and birthdays.